Folks, top of the hour, 5 o'clock, Heritage Day, 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Quite impressed. You've all hung around, many of you. Some of you come in recently. That's fantastic. Welcome on board. It's been an amazing day. Day has just disappeared on me, I'm perfectly honest. For those of you who've just joined us, don't know, my name's Ivan Anderson, but if you don't know that, then you've missed a fantastic day already. So you should have been here at the start. It's been amazing. We just come off a session from America, so we continue our global whirl around on our spaceship, virtual Trade Fair.global. The spaceship now comes back to South Africa, although it comes back to a lady who's also been around the world, I think, a few times. If I'm not mistaken, Kubeshni, you're a knowledge and learning leadership consultant with an organizational development focus, working in large and small systems through coaching and facilitation. Interventions such as Gestalt, Organisational Development Practitioner. Sure. Get my tongue around these things this late in the afternoon, Kubeshni, I don't know. You know, you really got to make life easier for us after we've been on these things all day. She's the chairperson of the Board of Associates of Gender Links. That was a bad mistake, wasn't it? So, yeah, especially when you're talking about gender links. Okay, an NGO promoting gender equality and justice across 15 countries and has run Black Earth Consulting PTY Limited for 13 years. And this year, Kubeshni co-founded Each One Hold One, a rights organization focused on women-to-women support. She's a media professional with years of experience, qualifications out of France, master's degree from Natal, Bachelor of Arts and Honours in Drama and Film from WITS, Bachelor of Arts from University of Natal, and now I'm really intimidated. I mean, these qualifications just go on and on, Kubeshni. So I think I'm going to have to leave it there and just ask you, please, to take me out of my misery here. I'm going to get myself tongue-tied trying to keep up with all of these qualifications. I just asked you to unmute, if you can there. And there we go. So thank you so much for being with us so late in the afternoon. Really appreciate your time and look forward to what you've got to say to us.
Thank you, Trevor, and all the other organizers. And wow, I see some faces here that I saw this morning. So let's start with a hand where a hand is needed. Well done, guys. I think it shows a commitment to the cause, Trevor, in broad strokes, but also to your own learning, which I think is extraordinary. And I eavesdropped on one of the sessions where there was a quote about. I was hoping it was the Alvin Toffler quote, which was the illiterate of the 21st century will not be those who cannot read and write, but those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. And so here we find ourselves. And I'm pleased to be able to talk to you today. I put a couple of slides together just to structure my piece. And I'm going to talk about something that means a great deal to me, although I have to admit it gives me a fair amount of challenge, and that is the issue of finding energy. Wherever it might be, and today in relation to your and my business. Ivan, can I get a thumbs up? Can you see my screen? Fantastic, fantastic. So at this late time of the day on Heritage Day, happy Heritage Day, everybody. I'm not going to land too much heavy stuff on you, but I do want to share two pieces of theory which mean a lot to me. And Ivan alluded to the Gestalt learning that I did a few years ago. And it was extraordinary. It was extraordinary learning, partly because as an adult learner, I think I've come to appreciate the opportunities for learning more than I had when I was a young person. And but the piece of work was amazing. It was about how to use self as a tool of intervention. This was the Gestalt Organisational Learning and Development Program, and I want to share with you a piece of theory that emerges from there, and this is called the cycle of experience, guys. It's where I'm going to locate this piece about energy. And as interveners and as people who want to work with systems, so the other big theme that I'm going to talk about a great deal is the issue of systems and recognizing that we work in systems, recognizing what our systems are, and how it is that we need to be aware of system as we try and do different things, in this case in service of renewal and rebuilding. So this is the Gestalt cycle of experience. And it's essentially used to track how it is we as human beings move through a process of sensation, awareness, energy, where we root our discussion today, into action, into doing something, into closing out, into withdrawing, and starting something new. That's a little arrow missing at the top. The energy piece is very important in this cycle of experience, because the energy piece actually, when you look at it, when you look at time and you look at the energy map, you find that you can actually track energy throughout the cycle of experience. As you come into a sensation, as you move into awareness, as you start to act, where you see you have a peaking of your energy, and where the energy is almost propelling you to a way forward, and then you have some measure of doing something. So the contact part is where you have a sense of trying to enact whatever it is that you want to do, and then you have resolution. And this piece is a very important part for me, because it overlays with another important theme that I want to talk to you about, which is the piece about systems. And one of the big learnings that I've had in my work as a facilitator, as a consultant, is this understanding that I do not work in a bubble, no big surprise, but that what I do in my space impacts everything else in ripples, okay? So at the smallest level of system, there's me and there's you. And then we build on that. We have a variety of levels of system in the space of family, team, organization, country, and the world. And in these levels of system, we're not always the same. And how it is we understand who we are in these different layers of system is a very, very important thing. Okay, so when it's just me and a human being, there's a level of understanding, there's a level of expectation of myself that I have. But when it's me and when it's my family, it's a different story. I'm a mother, I'm a daughter, I'm a sister, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a manager to the people that I work with, I'm a leader, kind of sometimes, it's something I'm coming into. I'm a peer. I've really come to understand how important this piece of peer is, okay? I'm a citizen in my country, and I'm a human being. I start and I end being a human being in the world. And these are very important elements when you want to try and understand system, when you want to try and locate energy, when you want to try and find yourself in the rather, let's say, uncontrolled. It feels uncontrolled. It feels disruptive. It feels volatile. I'm sure a couple of your speakers have this morning landed the VUCA acronym with you. But these things can feel a little bit overwhelming, guys. And when we try and find the system, energy to act, we have to be in awareness of where our systems are, what role we play in our systems, and how it is we can have energy to do. And so my story with you today actually starts by a realization, and it was a difficult realization, kind of a month into our COVID and in our lockdown, and I realized that I was struggling to just have the energy to make a team meeting with my team. We had, by that time, we had moved to remote working. Everybody had a laptop and everybody had data. And there was this expectation of me in the role of this work system that I would lead. And all I can say to you is that I didn't have the energy for it. I absolutely didn't have the energy for it. And that was my first level of sensation. It was an acknowledgement that I didn't have any energy. Worse still, I was struggling to find the energy to do simple things that I would normally have the energy to. I allowed myself that, and I think that part of us being able to understand, and part of my learning from being in a COVID environment and being in lockdown and feeling overwhelmed and out of control, is actually to sit with what it is I'm feeling right now. It's a really important part of moving forward. The Gestalt people talk about the theory of paradoxical change. And if anybody's interested a little bit more on this, you can email me and I'll send you a couple of readings. But what they talk about is they say that it is difficult or impossible to move forward into change or into different until we have sat with and in what is present and what is emergent from what is present. So I took my lack of energy to engage with my team as being data for what was happening to me, and I allowed myself to sit with that. I didn't force myself to watch the many motivational pieces that were sprouting at that time. To be quite honest with you, a lot of them really triggered me and made me quite upset. And the large part of that triggering was that it was almost in denial with what I was feeling. And so going back to this piece, the cycle of experience, is just to acknowledge the sensation. What was I going through at the time? What are you going through now? Are you feeling nervous about what lockdown level 1 might be? Are you feeling that it is too late, it is too soon? What are you feeling? What is your sensation? And if you sit with that a little bit, it'll start to give you data about what is in your present, what is pervasive for you. In Gestalt, we'll talk about what is emergent, what is figural. Okay, what is figural is very important because you can work from an energy point of view with that which is figural. Okay, otherwise it's trying to dig up something. It's like trying to dig up the coal before you can enable yourself to make a fire. So if you work with what is figural, you'll look around you and you'll say, okay, let's see, what do I have here that I can use as materials? And you'll start working with that. So coming into awareness can happen at various levels of system. And in this piece, I'm reflecting and I share with you and I invite you to ask these questions of yourself about coming into awareness for you in that first level of system, me, okay? How am I feeling? How are you feeling? What do you have energy for? What are you resisting? I'm going to talk about resistance just a little bit. So one of the big pieces from a Gestalt perspective is understanding where there's energy in the room. And I had always thought that resistance, people who have discomfort, people who openly, work against particular things, that these were people that were really the ones to avoid and the ones to look out for. But actually, resistance is a form of energy. It's just energy that's going in a different direction. So if you see your path, whether you're in your family system or your work system, and you see the people are moving in a particular way, or you want to move people in a particular way, and you have people who are resisting that, it's something to work with, because resistance is energy. It's just not going in the direction you want it to go in. But you can work with it. Let me tell you what scares me a little bit more than resistance: fading. Fading is when you don't have the energy to do very much at all. And so I look out for myself, as I indicated when I started, for when I am fading. When do I have the energy where I just don't feel like getting out of bed today? When do I not have energy to open my email? When don't I have energy to check Facebook or LinkedIn? Okay, in truth, I really shouldn't be checking Facebook and LinkedIn all that much. It's a huge energy sapper, that's for sure. But fading is for me, and for a lot of analysts, where you have an appreciation that you might be in danger, okay? Because it's the absence of energy. When are you triggered? When am I triggered? What's triggering me, okay? What is my comfort boundary? So this piece about learning is a very, very important piece. And the theory tells us that we learn at the boundary of our discomfort, okay? So a lot of times when I experience intrapersonal discomfort, when I'm triggered by something, I almost look at it as an invitation to learn. There is something in me that is coming up at a boundary point. And it's at those times that I take the time to stop and to pay careful attention about what it is that I need to learn at that boundary of discomfort. What do I need to learn, and how must I adapt? So what do you do with your awareness once you have come into awareness? Because sometimes it can be a very frustrating thing when you come into awareness and you realize that there's little that you can do. A lot of times, you know, for people who've been to therapy and who've went and had a professional or coach help them come into awareness, because sometimes we can't always do this thing on our own. It's a very important part to come into awareness, but it's also really important to move beyond it. What do you do once you start to have that energy that comes from emergence of understanding what is real, what is figural for you, what is figural for the system, okay? And I offer you this as a takeaway. It's a very simple thing that if for all the consultants on the call, you've probably used it a million times. I find it really useful to use in my personal system as well. As a human being, a mother, a leader, a peer, a consultant, I ask myself the question, what must I stop? What must I start? What must I continue doing in service of rebuilding and renewal? You know, guys, it would be a huge pity, Trevor, if we go away from this experience of the last 6 months, 7 months, and we are unchanged, and we are static, and we are fixed. It would be a huge waste of an opportunity for us to learn for ourselves, for our communities, for the world, you know. And we can see, we're presented every day when we watch the news about where that resistance to learning lands, and it lands quite hard, and it lands clumsily, and it lands sometimes in an unforgiving way. So it is my desire, I think, in terms of trying to understand what do I take from this experience of being in the pandemic in order that I renew and that I'm able to build again. And this is my little map, and I'll share this with you because I made it pretty for the purpose of this presentation, Ivan. But it was in a little notebook that I use for my own reflections, my own journaling. So for me, actually, COVID has been a very, very interesting piece. Being in lockdown with my family of 3 boys, my partner, and a man dog, a man puppy. Being the only woman in this house was really a very, very interesting experience. But in my system, for me, one of the things that I want to start doing, and I have started doing it actually, so maybe I want to continue it, is I want to do early mornings. I actually, during this period, I found the energy for structure that I struggled with prior to lockdown. I get up. Not so much when the sun rises, but I get up without being prompted, and I'm enjoying that. I really am enjoying, and I understand from a lot of the theory around how to keep your mental and your psychological frame during this time. That structure can be a very, very important part of the engagement. So I get up in the morning and I spend some time with my puppy. He runs around and marks the entire garden, and I sit and I breathe for a period, and it's beautiful. And when I don't do it, I miss it. So it's definitely something that I've started doing and that I want to carry on doing. Again, in my personal space, what do I want to continue doing post-COVID? I really am enjoying a level of this remote working. You know, I made some self-discoveries about how I like to work, and as much as I enjoy my own space, and I find that I can think in my cave, and I'm fortunate to have the space and have control of a space, so I'm able to do this. Okay. Also, my guys work rather well. So I'm making some very interesting reflections on this thing they call rent, and what I want to stop doing. I want to stop worrying. This was a big piece for me in finding the energy that took me. You know, I think perhaps it's a human thing. I definitely know it's a Kubeshni thing. I have the sense that if something is broken, it's my job to fix it, and the span of things that are out of my control actually huge. And I've started reading some Stoics because the Stoics give me how to bound myself, how to understand what I do have, and with humility and grace release that which I have no control over. Very quickly in my us space, so this is now moving to my next level of system. And let me start with what I want to stop doing. I was acutely aware in this period of COVID, and I couldn't tell you why, that I have a lack of tolerance with business relationships that don't share my values. On the converse side, I'm attracted to people who do share my values, which I think is amazing. Okay, and I'm going to stop services that are no longer in demand. I have a bit of a romantic attachment to that which I have done. So to try and stop doing something that we've been doing in our business requires a great deal of effort for me because I put so much energy into creating it in the first place. But if I don't stop doing that, I'm going to make myself a laggard in no time. So going back to the things that I'm going to start doing, I need to shed that which in my business is not needed. And that can be a huge thing. I so loved Tony's piece, guys, about the online marketing and about marketing in general and just reconnecting with some of those principles. I have put more energy into online marketing in the last 7 months than I have over 13 years. It's been amazing for me. What the things that I want to continue doing that I started during the period of COVID is actually, I'd love to be able to push the boundary with some of my clients to do more online client meetings. I'm in that unenvious position of a lot of my clients are government clients, which means that living in Johannesburg, I get in a car, I drive 40 minutes to an hour if it's traffic. I get to a place, I sit down for a meeting that's an hour or 45 minutes, I get back in my car and I come back. And a lot of my clients are realizing, hey, you know what, guys, we don't have to. They've learned Zoom. How wonderful. So I'm hoping that we can all save ourselves a little bit of stress and I can carry on doing this. I really want to continue building the kinds of associations and partnerships that grow me, and that I find that I'm more receptive to now. And that's a huge opportunity in terms of me trying to find the energy, not just for me, but I find that if I can lean on the energy of a partner, somebody who's like-minded, if I can lean on the energy of a peer, it makes a huge difference to my ability to do and my ability to act. So that's that. I'm going to close out this piece about how it is that I connect the systems piece with the what to do to find energy piece. I'm going to end my piece by just offering you some thoughts about how it is you can support your teams, because again, we don't work in our little bubbles. I want to share with you some thoughts about how you can support your teams, find energy, check in with them, and so that you can start to move the system, the bigger system, forward. And let's start with an acknowledgement. I would earn good money, Trevor, for the many times that people have said to me, shush, online is so tiring. And at first when I started doing it, I thought, yay, I can run up here, I can get a little bit more sleep, I'd be sitting here, sorted. It is exhausting, guys. And part of the reason it's exhausting is because of what we call the cognitive load or overload. And right now, very typically, I've hidden your faces from me so that I can see the full screen. But as human beings, we make meaning of the world, not just from our voices and from what we can see. We make meaning with our entire bodies. And we can't do that online. So what happens is that we're using our cognitive senses in a way we're unaccustomed to. Okay, and this is exhausting. And if it's exhausting for you, it's going to be exhausting for your team. And you need to bear that in mind. So to this end, my first piece is first do no harm. And perhaps with this one, it's fortuitous that I followed on by the pastor, and his incredible words. But there's a need for us to be kind to each other, perhaps more kind than we've been ever before. And if I think, Ivan, about the themes that have crisscrossed this entire day, that theme of kindness, that theme of being connecting. This has been a theme across your most ardent capitalists, by the way. I was listening to the, oh, I forget his name now. But the one who had all these models, these economic models. But that has been a theme throughout this entire day, okay? And we know that people are under a lot of psychological stress. Mental health is becoming a huge thing. Suicide rates are starting to really bother practitioners because people are unable to cope. Be kind. But as you be kind, be aware of what you need to be kind. I find it very difficult to bring kindness and lightness into my work when I'm tired. And so I need to self-care enough so that I'm able to bring that level of energy to the people that I work with. Otherwise, I'm faking it and it doesn't feel very good. In fact, I've stopped trying to fake it, to be honest with you. So the other thing that you need to bear in mind in this piece of kindness is that when I answer your call, and when your staff and your team answers your call, you are entering a portal that you've never been invited to before. You are entering their homes, okay? And for a lot of us, we very rarely have perspective into these homes, okay? So it's a different dynamic. It can feel very invasive for somebody on this end, okay? So be respectful about that. And the other thing is that linking to this piece about kindness is that it's very easy for us to misunderstand one another, guys, when we don't have the benefit of the variety of ways that we make meaning of each other, of engagements. I'm starting to find now, as I hold a lot of my consulting clients in these teams, that people are getting irritated with each other. And so when I feel that happening, I actually try and close out these kinds of meetings. I close it out. I encourage the people who are there to just pick up the phone and have a conversation, a one-on-one conversation, okay? Because we'll have challenges understanding each other just because we're doing it in this way. And we don't have the benefit of multiple forms of meaning making. Be aware you're not the only meeting in somebody else's day. Okay, if you're a manager, take a step back. We spoke about cognitive load earlier on. For the employees, I think there's an opportunity to speak to what you are feeling and to ask for what you need. And I say this because I think there's a fairly common purpose agreement that we are in extraordinary times. And so there might be a greater tolerance to understand and appreciate and a greater flexibility, but you need to speak to that. Okay, so it's an invitation. On the matter of time, I find that with a lot of my clients that there's the opportunity to actually rethink how it is that we translate real time into virtual time. Sometimes it takes more, sometimes it takes less. Be aware of this and play with time. Be really aware that for a lot of employees who are still working from home, they do more, not less. Okay, so I'm here. I don't have my systems separated anymore. I am in this moment mother who's going to go to the bride that is getting ready for our dinner. I am partner who is supportive of my partner who needs to do some work this evening. I am sister. I am professional. I am a consultant because I need to finish report later. And these things, they all layer. They're kind of happening all at the same time. Okay, so be aware of that. On the issue of overlapping demands, I invite you to multi-stream, not multitask. There's a beautiful body of knowledge, mostly from the minimalists, that speak to the reality that multitasking actually adds to the cognitive load. And part of the reason is that you have multiple things open. You don't get the benefit of closure of one so that you get energy to go to something else, okay? And I find for myself that at the end of the day, if I have multitasked, I'm tired. I may have done a lot of things, but my memory has not caught up with all those things that I've done. So I don't get any kind of self-appreciation for that which I've done in a really long day. Multi-streaming is a different thing. It means that I can do a variety of different things in a day, but I chunk it. So I start something, I conclude it. Even if I press pause on it, it's a temporary closure. I close it, I take a little gap, and I go to something else. As opposed to doing 3 things at once, which I used to do a great deal. Yes, again, being observant of systems, okay? These online meetings are just part of our engagement. There are other ways that we can engage the teams and the people that we can work with. Again, we are able to form trust because when people feel that they've been listened to, it's the start of being able to create trust. And if I can have trust with you, I can contract with you. If I can contract with you, you get me a step closer to working with you towards doing something meaningful. Think about this when you are trying to work online and you are forced to listen perhaps more than you speak, but also spend time checking in during the course of a conversation so that you know what is going on with somebody, okay? The other thing is that you're not going to solve it all in a day. So give yourself a break, give the team a break, work it out a little bit as to what you need to happen, needs to happen over a period of time, and settle your feelings of urgency, because in truth, working in this way, if we don't take the time to pause and think and reflect, we're likely to move in a direction because of the limited stimulus that we're getting that we may need to come back on, okay? And then the last thing, something that I definitely need to work on, is it doesn't all have to be about work. You know, I'm aware that Nedbank does some amazing things with, I don't know if we have any Nedbank people online, but they do some amazing things through this online platform. So they invite comedians to come and do sessions with their staff and their family. They have team events online where it's not about work, it's just about connecting. I'm aware that they do things like they have their like Friday meetings where everybody in the team gets Uber Eats delivered. So they start with breakfast like they would if they were in the office. So build in some non-work things, okay? Because remember, connection is one step towards trying to do something. It is one step closer to your agenda to rebuild. It's 2 steps closer towards your desire for rebuilding. And those are my 2 cents to you guys today, Ivan, Trevor, and the rest of the good people on this call this lovely Thursday afternoon.
Well, Kubeshni, I think it was definitely more than 2 cents. That's for sure, without a shadow of a doubt. So thank you. Yeah, you know, and I think your tone and your voice has just relaxed all of us in this session. It's been amazing listening to you, and it just sort of flows over. You know, as you're talking, and then it probably goes in a lot easier as well. So some brilliant insights and some really practical thoughts and ideas there. So thank you so much. So let's see if we've got some questions and comments, folks. Who are we going to open up to? There's been a lot of fun going on. Sorry?
Apparently, I'm talking to Trevor on the multitasking bit.
Yeah. If you've ever seen Trevor's laptop, you'll know what I'm talking about. It's quite a scary thing.
Just hang on. Let me pick my 30-second window just opened. Kubeshni, I've got to ask you, please. You know, I don't know what it is about today, but the topic of rebuilding the shattered economy has focused primarily on us changing our mindsets. And I keep trying to get people to come back to the thing that's taken us all down. And that's with everyone that I talk to, and they talk about, look at what's on the TV, look at the latest news, look at all this corruption, look at all the... Now, you're dealing with local government. So I'd love to take your awakening over these last 180 days and what it is you're going to be able to do with your experience And what you're going to do now with those people to influence them to actually change their behaviors that are impacting on us ordinary folk out there on a daily basis?
Horrible question, Trevor. Terrible.
But I got to push you, man.
He's trying to rattle your cage, Kubeshni. He's trying to rattle your cage.
Just luckily, I'm not energized. I was starting to fade a bit, and I really go for it.
You're going to have to try a bit harder. So, Trevor, what I do different is actually nothing. It's what I've been doing from the time I started working in the sector. You know, and Trevor, I have worked in government from just when Mandela was leaving, and I tell you guys, this public service has been beautiful. When I started working in this public service, I worked for the Department of Public Service and Administration with Geraldine Fraser-Moleketi. It was the start of this thing that we call Batupile. And I wore a t-shirt that said, "I'm proud to be a public servant." And you know what, Trevor, I was. And it's gone through some really difficult times, Trevor, some really, really, really difficult times. And I've worked through the system. I'm working outside of the system. And the only thing that I can tell you is that I'm aware that if I maintain my integrity, if I maintain my values, if I'm courageous enough to land my integrity, my values, and my intention at every client meeting that I have in local government, if I am brave enough to speak my mind in a respectful way, I am heard. And I am heard at every meeting that I have, and I can only hope, Trevor, that like me, there are more people who come back into the service, because there have been a lot of people that have fled, a lot of people that have been chased. Okay, it is my desire and my hope that we are able to renew the public service with people who have intention, hope, and faith. And Trevor, it's not going to happen overnight. But part of the reason that I still work in this sector, and it is not an easy sector to work in. Sometimes you talk about finding the energy to do something. Sometimes you really have to dig down deep to find it. It isn't an easy sector to work in. But I do it because I really do believe that the public service, governance, particularly in our country, governance is a huge lever for everything. It is a lever for your economy. It is a lever for change. It is the lever for us, for citizens, for ordinary citizens. And that is how I approach my work.
So just to follow up on that, you've had a feel of the type of speakers that we've got, the quality of individuals that are around. And I mean, this is just a drop in the ocean of the people that we are connected to around the globe. What is the one thing immediately that 3, 4, 5, 15, 20, 30, 50 of us could do in the next 5 to 10 days that is action oriented, that would help you just leapfrog forward, influencing those people that you connect to? What do you want?
So let me connect with what it is that you started saying when we started speaking, that the intention around this piece was to try to have us move on the economy, to try and have us reflect on the larger system, the macroeconomic side of it, the governance systems. But over and over and over, Trevor, we come to us. We come to us. And I think that change is impossible unless and until I sit with myself and I understand what about my behavior causes for there to be a future or a present that I do not want. And Trevor, it could be something as simple as me going past my front lawn, seeing some rubbish on my neighbor's lawn and thinking, he'll get it tomorrow morning. Okay? It's that classic broken window theory that actually is not so far-fetched, but it's a very important theory to understand governance and how systems work in government. Okay? It's about the fact that as individuals, if I pick up my trash, if I can encourage somebody else to, if I can move somebody else to do something in service of my space, my local environment, that is where it starts. It starts with this space, Trevor. And there's a connection between how it is that I'm able to influence my space and how that space in turn influences what I'm able to do.
Thanks, Kubeshni. Lee, you muted yourself again. Let me unmute. Lee was wanting to ask something there. If there's anybody else, please just put up your virtual hand or switch on your video and wave at me, and I might notice you.
Thanks so much, Kubeshni. I think what I really appreciated was some really practical ways of getting into how to not only energize yourself, but to actually reframe some of your thinking. And I think what I took out of it personally as well is I have actually, lockdown has been a tremendous learning curve for me. And in a number of ways, work, technical, working with teams, there's been an incredible amount of learning. But what I haven't done is pause long enough to actually to kind of bed it down, to say, oh, okay, I've sort of just been on the hamster wheel and you just keep on keeping on. Trevor talks about paddling, and I feel like I've been paddling, and I talk about paddling on a river like I know what I'm talking about, but actually I don't have a clue, because I've never paddled on a river in my life before, but I'm very happy to use that metaphor. I'm moving out because there's lots of background noise here. But what I wanted to ask you, Kubeshni, is you were speaking specifically about awareness relating to your emotions, and so what is it that you're feeling, that sensation, those sensations? What is it about that's so important, that you're paying attention to what is you are currently going through? Why does that matter, and why does it make a difference?
So I'm going to speak to you as a woman. I'm going to speak to you as a human being. There's a sense, there's a body of knowledge around our intuitive self, okay, and around holistic leadership and holistic decision making. And some of that theory suggests that we make our best decisions when we are able to gather data not just from one part of us, our cognitive sense, that this mental part of us, but when we come into our bodies, and I don't know if you've ever worked with somebody who I used to work with somebody who would say often, she'd say, this just doesn't feel right, you know? And for the longest time, I couldn't, it's like, what are you feeling exactly? Because I'm a very head person, you know? And she'd say, it doesn't feel right. She'll touch her tummy or, you know, a different part of her body, and, you know, and I had to learn, and I'm still learning, it is part of my learning curve, how to gather data about things from a variety of sources. It's such an important part of how it is we're intuitive. We build that intuitive sense, Lee. You know, so when I'm in a meeting, I have a sense as to if something's not feeling a certain way, I just sit with myself a little bit and I try and locate what it is that's going on. And oftentimes, you know, Trevor, I tend to make poor entrepreneurial decisions when I go against those feelings. And so I try not to. I think my time's up.
No, that Oscar was just doing some testing there.
Oscar is the ultimate competitor. He will knock you off your platform. So we've killed him now.
Oh, I just want to say one thing about paddling. Now that Oscar's
Oscar's, yeah, we've got to talk about paddling. Lee brought it up. Been called.
My one experience, this is why I think pausing is so important. My limited experience of paddling at the Zoo Lake is that, firstly, whether I'm on my own or whether I'm with my kids, if I do not bring some kind of intention to the paddling, I still will go around and around and around in a circle. I go nowhere. So paddling is a very instructive thing about finding a direction, discussing with the people around you how it is you're going to get into that direction, and then doing something in unison. Otherwise, you can spend a lot of time going around in the circle. See, I've teed up Oscar. He's all set to go now.
You're starting
Thank you so
early.
much, Kubeshni.
Yeah, we're starting. We've still got about 15 minutes to the top of the hour. So, but that's fine. We can just continue to chat and see what other questions are coming in. So Rebecca asked something about whether you believe that the news is misleading everybody with 0.01% of the truth.
So I have decided, and it is a daily practice for me, to not start my day with the news. I'm aware that everybody and the dog has an opinion right now. And what I purposefully do is I try and expose myself to as much as I can when I have the time and the energy for it, and then just to sit with it. I resist the temptation to jump into theory, to jump into an understanding of what these things are saying, largely because what is being reported right now is also just all emerging. I mean, like we're trying, the smartest, most talented people are trying also, So I don't know. I must be honest with you. I don't know. And I guess I'm comfortable with saying that for now, I'm okay with not knowing, because I don't have control over a lot of things that are being reported on. And so it's a sanity check for me to be able to understand my level of system and where I can have control and impact and influence, and that's where I seek to make my effort. That's where I seek to make effort.
Thanks, Kush. And that's why you start your morning with your dog, not the news.
Absolutely. And the hardy does.
And the hardy does. Yeah, excellent. I'm not sure, Oscar, if you're asking me to unmute you or what's going on there, but I did try this now. But we've got everybody on automatic mute, so you've got a little icon up there. I'm not too sure what you're wanting. Okay, so anyway. Okay, so what else? So yeah, I agree with Trevor. Let's start today making good news, and I think that's what we've tried to do here with Heritage Day. Try and create something special. And really get some good news out there. And Kubeshni, yeah, thanks so much for being part of the day and part of the process, and helping us not kick this off. We're sort of coming towards the end of the day today, so it's been fantastic. So I see Lee's waving at me again, so I better unmute her quickly, otherwise I'll get into trouble. So Lee, have you got an unmute there? No?
I think you're good, Lee.
No, she muted herself again. Let's try again. There we go.
It's like the car door, when somebody's locking and unlocking. What was happening between Ivan and myself. If we do have time, I would love to ask another question. And Kubeshni, you spoke about governance being a leverage. Is something that we can leverage in terms of a number of areas that could create development opportunities. And I'd love you just to say a little bit more about what you mean.
So one of the amazing things. So I've worked at national government for a few years, and then I started working in local government. And one of the huge awakenings that I came to in working with local government is understanding of how advanced our local government legislature is as a separate third sphere of governance. There are laws that empower us in our cities, in our wards, in our districts, that it would surprise you, Lee. It would surprise you. It is genuinely, I mean, we have very advanced nations, developed nations, who refer and speak to our local government legislation. And a lot of it remains theoretical and it remains policy because we simply don't know about a lot of the access points for us to make a difference in governance. So this thing about leverage is really to understand and embed ourselves, because as citizens, how can we really be active from a democracy point of view if we don't know? And for those of us who have resources to know, I think it's our responsibility to find out. It's our responsibility to find out how the petition system works. It's our responsibility to understand how it is that I can work with my ward councillor, and that I have a right to engage with her, and she has an obligation to work with me. This is the simplest, but it's a complex and it's a detailed form of decentralized government that we have. And from here, it just folds upwards. So this is my piece about how it is as citizens, as ordinary people. We can use government, we can use governance, and we can use the local sphere to make a difference.
There's a whole different piece, new piece here that we really need to delve into. And I think to be more informed citizens, more involved citizens, and I think that sounds very exciting, Kubeshni, and so I'd be thrilled to carry on that conversation.
Beautiful.
And I just want to make a comment here, because I want to upset Oscar, because he likes to tweak his canoe and his pedal ski and all that sort of thing. So I want to frustrate him and get him cross for the top of the hour session. Kubeshni, you talk of national government, local government, your involvement there, and I know you've been involved there over a long period of time. I have the sense that there are so many positive things that have happened for our population in general over the last 20 to 25 years that we are being bombarded with the really frustrating, ugly stuff. But just comment for us on, are we being fooled? I mean, I'm sitting here in a nice little backyard and that sort of thing, but has the world actually changed positively for a large proportion of people? Excuse the best.
Good job about that, Chairperson.
Yeah.
Let me reframe. Let me use Lee's word. Let me reframe fooled to what are you aware of? Okay, and it goes to the question that was asked very intuitively about where we're getting our sources from and what are those sources telling us. So there's a piece, and just connecting as we close out on the piece around energy. I facilitated a case study process with some amazing consultants, change makers, where they're interviewing various cities to understand what their case studies for good governance are. There's this amazing project in Pretoria, guys. The acronym is COSAP. It's between the University of Pretoria, the city, SAP, and it's essentially what it is. It's about trying to test our assumptions around drug use, around communities, around treatment, and I facilitated the session coming into it completely cold, Trevor. And by the end of it, I was energized. I was energized because what I heard and what I used to hear when you go and you look for these stories was people who were aware of, and this, by the way, they did this piece of work in Tshwane through 2 administrations. I mean, for anybody who lives in Tshwane now, you know it's not a really very happy place, right? There are lots of other things that are making the headlines. These people were aware of what they needed to do as academics, as public servants, as SAPS officials. They had counselors who essentially sat in meetings and said, we got you. And they are doing, what they're doing with this drug program right now is going to change national legislation of how it is you do treatment campaigns in local government. It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. So there are these stories, Trevor. Why we don't hear enough of it, that's a whole other session. But I'm also aware that a lot of times I need to open myself out to wanting to hear these stories. And when I do, I need to be open enough to receive them. because that gives me energy to carry on doing the work that I do.
Great, thanks so much, Kubeshni. It's always great to hear the good stories, and I don't think the media allows us to hear enough of them, unfortunately. As you say, that's a whole another can of worms that you could go and open at some point in time. But, we had some great news from Dr. Rudolf Buerter this morning on the economy and things that you're just not seeing in the press. You're giving us some great stories coming out of the civil service, which I think is wonderful. It's the kind of information people really need, I think, right now, to actually start hearing these really good stories. So once again, Kubeshni, thanks so much. Really appreciate your time and your input.